Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing as well as analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up the past 24 or so hours. Hopefully, you're having an amazing day. We have a ton of stuff to get through in today's video. First, though, just a quick channel update. You can skip forward 30 seconds if you want to get past this. There is only a single video today because I'm working on a ton of stuff. The next day or two will be a retrospective of AMD's R9 290X. I'm also doing benchmarks currently in preparation for when I receive the 30 series from AMD plus a couple of AIBs. And there won't just be a review, I'm working on some really fun stuff. There will also very soon be the Xbox Series S script. I've had to rewrite it like 3 times now because of new info, including one thing that I'm covering today. So, yeah, that will be really cool and pretty exhaustive. And there will also be another exclusive soon detailing yet more stuff for the RX 6000 series and some Zen 3 info that we won't be discussing in this video. And there will also be kind of an overview of everything I think of the next generation consoles soon too. And breathe. Right, let's jump onto the news. The first is a Ryzen 5000 series news, and that is that the 12-core model is going to be the 5900X and the 5800X is going to be the 8-core model. This is courtesy of Patrick Scher on Twitter. I actually got DM'd about this by Patrick. He was letting me know about it, so thanks very much to him for this, for letting me know about this. But I can confirm from my sources, I recently had an exclusive on this, that AMD are skipping Ryzen 4000 for desktop. Just to be clear, I know Renoir for desktop does exist, but we're referring here to the Zen 3 based CPUs. And this is basically for parity between, well, obviously the Ryzen 5000 series Vermeer and the Cezanne series for mobile, which obviously will be the Renoir series, successor, not series. So, to my understanding, Patrick is 100% here. 5000 is what we're going to be seeing. And we've already seen quite a few engineering samples that have appeared in Wild, including Igor's Lab, which recently reported an engineering sample which is 4.9 GHz. Indeed, Patrick himself also provided an update to say that it was not a 16-core processor, but only a 12-core processor. And there also are allegations that there's a 10-core as well. I mean, let's face it, if I were AMD, it would make sense for a 10-core, because you're basically kicking Intel's Comet Lake in the shin. But what the name with that? I mean, I guess it would be the 5850X. That's the only thing that I can really imagine. I do know that Zen 3 is looking to be very profound in terms of performance. I have info on that, but I need to clarify a few points before I put out a video. However, with that said, there is actually AMD themselves, Forrest Norrod, who is the SVP/GM over at AMD. He was recently being questioned about AMD's roadmap, and he was also asked, this is by the way courtesy of Seeking Alpha, about, the architectures. He said that the first generation of Zen was great, but Zen 2 was as well, but Zen 3, that's at the heart of our next generation products, and it's also tremendously powerful architecture. And we're on the right trajectory of what we need to be on. And again, of course, they're being very boastful of the performance. I can tell you that everything I'm hearing at the moment, Zen 3 is going to be very profound. I'm trying I don't want to be mysterious in this video. That's not the reason I'm being kind of cagey, but I don't want to make claims that could be incorrect. So I do want to double check with a second source to back up what the first source is telling me, but I'm fairly certain of what I'm being told. But I do want to now leave AMD behind and mosey our way to Nvidia. Nvidia are kind of confirming that there's a 3080 20GB model. Kind of, not directly, but this was spotted over at videocards.com, so courtesy to them. However, if you really carefully look at the comparison of the 3080 to the 20 series, you'll notice the names. So I won't read out all of this, but if you notice the 2080, it says GeForce RTX 2080 Founders Edition, but there's no reference at all as to the amount of RAM. However, this is not the case with the 3080, where obviously you can see it does say 10 gigs of RAM. The only reason that this would be the case is if there were two memory variants. Why else would they do that? Now, whether or not there is any difference at all in the specs other than that quantity of RAM, well, we don't know that. There are rumours that the 20 series is faster, but the thing is, then you would imagine it would start to eat into the Ti, unless there is no 3080 Ti, and the 3080 Ti is actually the 3080 20GB model. Now, I don't know if that's the case, so please don't say, that is true. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. However, you could possibly make an argument that you could enable a small amount more of the CUDA cores on the GPU. Obviously, with the 3080, you're looking at 8704 and 10,496 for the 3090. So we could have the low 9,000-ish mark, just throwing it out there. And then they could crank the clock frequency of the RAM, as we've already seen the RAM does actually hit 20 Gbps or faster actually for the 3080 cards. So one theory is that they could go to let's say 19.5, which is the same kind of clocks as the 3090, maybe a little faster. And that could be a reasonably fast card. And it wouldn't have to have a wider memory bus, and that could be the option. Again, I'm not saying that this is the case, but it does make logical sense to me in terms of the configuration. Furthermore, we do know that there are other derivatives of the 30 series, of course. We know that there is going to be a 3060 Ti that's kind of leaked. And we also know that there's going to be a vanilla 3060. I'm kind of interested actually in the low-end cards as much as I am the high-end. Don't get me wrong, the 3080 and those cards like the RX 6900, which I've leaked a ton of stuff about recently. You should check out my exclusive recently where I went through tons of exclusive photos of the cards. So if you've not checked that out, you should. But I am very interested in those, but I'm curious to what is going to happen in terms of the performance for a card which is worth $250 to $350 US dollars. If you can get a decent GPU, really fast for $300, that to me is going to be a really, really, really cool thing indeed. So I'm actually really excited about that. And now I want to move on to some console-related stuff because, wow, there is a lot of console-related news. As I mentioned earlier, I will be putting out a much more detailed analysis of the Xbox Series S. I've written the script, but I need to slightly amend it because we've got some more information here that I wanted to kind of throw in, plus a few other bits. And I also would like to go into kind of an overview of the next generation consoles. I have a lot of thoughts which aren't really tech-based, but I'd like to kind of go into my thoughts of the strategies for the next generation. But getting back to this, Jim Ryan from Sony has confirmed that there is no compatibility at all with PS1, 2 or 3 games. Basically, they've said that they just couldn't, and I quote, reach the implementation of such capabilities. So they didn't really go into much technical detail, honestly. They've essentially said that you can, of course, still play certain games via PS Now or whatever, but if you want to play, put it this way, you cannot put in a PS1 disc into your PlayStation 5, and you cannot put a PS3 disc in either. And I actually feel that that's a really big negative. I actually am really disappointed that this is not the case. It's not news. No one thought that this was going to happen. Sony would have boasted about this by now, so it's just really confirmation on what we already knew. I know some people don't give a rat's ass about backwards compatibility, and I totally get it. the thing is, though, from a software perspective, there's no reason that they couldn't do it for the PS1 and 2 especially. Like, you literally were able to emulate PS1 games almost flawlessly in, like, the late 90s on a PC. I mean, unless they're basically admitting that the Zen 2 core in the PlayStation 5 is not as powerful as a CPU that was released in, like, 1999 or something from Intel. Now, of course, that's completely rubbish, and it can easily do that. And they could do so with an emulator which is kind of on a case-by-case basis. Even if they said, look, we can't guarantee 100% compatibility, but we have this, they could have maybe even used an open-source emulator, given it's x86. There were strategies that they could use. PlayStation 2, again, there's tons of emulators for that. And the requirements for PS2 emulation are not strictly high. PS3 emulation, that's a bit of a different story. I have tested this before, not on the channel, with an i7 4770K, which is several generations old now. It was like 2013, I think, from Intel. 4 cores, 8 threads. Mine's overclocked a little bit. It's not my main rig by any means, but it's just an older system that I happened to try the PS3 emulator, PCSX3, I think it's called offhand. But long story short, I was trying like Silent Hill on it. It worked okay. It wasn't flawless. It definitely was not hitting 60 FPS, but it did work-ish. If I had a more powerful processor that I tested it on, I actually would really like to redo these tests on a 3700X or my 10900K or something like that. You could do it pretty flawlessly. So, you know, grunt-wise, the PS3 could do this. Sorry, PS5 could do this. The only issue is, of course, it does require quite a lot of engineering resources. So I do feel that this is a pretty big win for Microsoft. Again, I know that not everyone cares about this. I kind of feel that you should be able to play it. Older generations. I think it's nice. Speaking of Jim, he also mentioned that no one should be disappointed. The PlayStation 5 versions of those games, we'll get into the games in a moment, are built from the ground up to take advantage of the PS5 feature set, but we have an upgrade path for PS4 users to get the PS5 versions for free. It's about people having choice, and I'm pleased about the situation. And this is because people are calling Sony out because certain games on the PlayStation 5 will appear on the PS4. Namely, we know at the moment of Spider-Man Miles Morales, Horizon Forbidden West, and Sackboy A Big Adventure. It's imperative to realise that not all of these next generation experiences will have cross-generation with the PS4. So titles, for example, like Ratchet and Clank, ain't gonna happen. And we can also say the same of like Demon's Souls or something like that. The only issue I have with them even doing this, in fact, I think it's good it's happening. I don't mind it at all. I have no qualms about Sony doing this. My concern isn't that they're actually doing it. It's that previously they called out Microsoft for doing the same thing, basically. The only thing you can say is that Microsoft have made this pledge for, I'm guessing, a longer period of time, and also for all games. So what Sony seem to be doing is being selective of the games. So engines which started life on the PS4, or experiences which are easier to port to the PS4, obviously they can bring those experiences much easier. But a title like, for example, Ratchet and Clank, I don't think would be viable on a PS4, simply because of the sheer amount of data. Now, they could theoretically change the design. They could change the design a bit for the PS4 version, which would mean maybe you have fewer portals, or maybe if you go through a portal, there's a quick loading screen, or I don't know, whatever. But they could maybe do it, they could tinker the game so it does work, but it wouldn't have the flawless gameplay experience of the next generation. So I think that's what Sony kind of were referring to here. My issue, again, isn't that they're doing this, it's that I think they were very mixed and muddled with their marketing when they were criticising Microsoft. And now we're going to move on to some Microsoft news. Jesus, video. As you are likely aware at this point, the Xbox Series S is considerably cheaper than the Series X. It's about $200 US. It depends obviously on your particular currency. And with the reduction in performance of the machine, obviously way less GPU performance, blah blah blah, we also have, of course, less power to display high-resolution graphics, which is leading to a few things. The first is that the SSD in the Xbox Series S is only 512 gigabytes. This is compared to 1 terabyte of the Series X. The good news is, though, it has been confirmed that game install sizes will be smaller on the Series S versus the X, and this is naturally due to resolution texture packages needing to be smaller, i.e. if you don't need 4K textures, all you really need to do is concern yourself about games which will display up to 1440p. So clearly this is a very smart move for Microsoft, because otherwise 512 gigabytes would get eaten up super quickly, like super duper quickly. Furthermore, it seems like the Series X isn't the only 4K capable console. In fact, there are reports from officially Microsoft themselves that the Series S can run games at 4K, but the reality is it's going to be 1440p for the majority of games. So what does this mean? Well, essentially, Microsoft have confirmed developers are free to do whatever they want with the graphics settings, so they can go for a lower resolution, 1080 or 1440p, but you could go for 4K. So a title, for example, like Ori on the Blind Forest, or, kind of an artsy style 2D game, that could definitely run at 4K. The Series S has more than enough power to do something like that, and obviously with more bells and whistles than what we have with this current generation. But if it's something that's really strenuous, like, I don't know, the Medium, that's a good example, or the next Gears of War, or whatever, there's a good possibility that 4K, high frame rates, probably not so much. I'm going to be really curious to see what the sales figures are, to be honest, for the Series S, because at $299, I think it's a very good entry-level console. The problem for me isn't that it's $299, it's that the PlayStation... I mean, you're looking at PS5 being $399. The question is, to me, the availability. Like, the availability for the PlayStation has not been good at all, and that's putting it extremely mildly. I don't know if the Xbox is going to be any better. Obviously, the pre-orders for the Xbox go live on the 22nd of December, which is not very long into the future at all. This generation has been really weird to me. I can't put it any other way. This generation has been really strange. And I think that a lot of the uncertainty around this generation have obviously been things like the world pandemic. I definitely think that that has impacted both Sony and Microsoft's ability to kind of put consoles out there. And I definitely think it's slowed down and held back releases. I think it's going to be a very interesting set of choices. I have several friends who want to buy a PlayStation 5, but they just weren't able to get a pre-order. And one of my friends, I'm going to tone down the language, they just told me screw it, that they're just going to wait until next year at this point. They're just done with it. Like they're just tapped out for this generation. Personally, I was kind of like unsure whether to pick up a PlayStation 5 or not, and an Xbox Series X. For a long time, I've said that I wasn't interested at all. I wasn't going to pick one up. Because honestly, I'm so good with the current situation with PC. I'm so happy with the PC platform at the moment. But Amy, basically, she's put a pre-order down with her boyfriend, so they're getting a PlayStation 5. So I'm thinking of just picking up an Xbox Series X, just so on the channel we've got both. It kind of makes sense. I might pick up a PlayStation 5 if the pre-orders become available. I did look yesterday, and I put I went to the page, I literally put my payment details into pick up a PS5 as well, because I was like, I guess that would kind of be cool if I could pick up both consoles, which is the reverse of what I was intending to do. I guess just the excitement of just, next generation, it just kind of got me at a moment of weakness, and the website I used, by the time I put my payment details in, it literally took me to the bank page, and then it was just like, nope, no pre-order for you, Sonny Jim. So I'm going to try my luck on the Xbox as well. As I said, Amy's pre-order seems to be confirmed, so I'll be interested to see what happens with the next generation over the next few months, to be honest, and see what availability ends up being. With all of that said, thank you very much for watching the video. The normal stuff: like, share, comment, and subscribe. And thanks again for all of the recent support. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.